Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're gonna have a kind of a more chill, chit-chatty kind of discussion about imposter syndrome. This is something that I didn't realize so many people would be interested in, but I've gotten quite a few messages asking me if I've ever dealt with imposter syndrome, if I had any tips for it, and I actually do, because the truth is that I dealt with it, still deal with it, but definitely dealt with it almost to the point of crippling me. And by that I mean to the point where I almost didn't get started with all of the business and the stuff and all of that. So obviously I did overcome it and I'm on the other side now. I do still sometimes feel like that, but I wanted to share a couple of helpful tips and insights that I have gained over the years of me actually having to actively figure out how I was going to deal with these feelings that I was experiencing. So if that's something that is going to be helpful to you, then let's get started. Now, if you're new around here, hi, my name is Becca. I am an elementary music teacher and I have a business where I help elementary music teachers with everything that they need. And then here on this YouTube channel, I help people who want to help teachers help teachers. That's a lot of helping. So if that's something that you're into, then you can hit that subscribe button down below. All right, so first of all, what is imposter syndrome? The imposter syndrome is just a fancy way of saying being nervous about not being good enough for whatever it is you're doing. And a lot of it being worried about what other people will think about what you are doing. So this came up for me in my life because I started my business very early. I actually started my blog my first year of teaching, and I started teaching really young. I graduated college at 21 and I started teaching at 21. So I was, right there at the beginning, and I knew I didn't know everything. Obviously, I hardly knew anything, but I just wanted to share anything that I found that helped and go from there. So I started this blog where I started by just kind of helping with literally anything. If there was a lesson that worked, I wanted to share it. If there was something I learned about classroom management or about teaching, I wanted to share it. If there was something that I was struggling with that I wanted to talk about, then we talked about it. And that was kind of like the beginning of the blog. And then as it went on, it became more lesson ideas, activities, and things like that that were more practical as the years went on. Now, where it came into the imposter syndrome, when I first started, I didn't tell anybody about my business for years. Obviously I told my husband, but other than that, I really didn't mention it to anyone until I mentioned it to my mom because it was making money, and my mom is my tax preparer, and that is how she found out, because I was like, hey, I started this thing, I made some money, so I need to report that on my taxes. And that's how she started. I never even told my father. My mom just told my dad because they're married, and that's what married people do. And so literally just wouldn't say a thing to anybody. I didn't mention it. It didn't come up because I was terrified, and I wasn't worried about random people on the internet because I knew I was helping, and I knew that sharing my story was helping some people. I didn't know who they were, but somebody. And so that didn't scare me, but what scared me was people I knew being like, oh my gosh, who does this girl think she is? Out here trying to share things like she doesn't know anything and stuff like that. And especially because I started it so early and I was so young, and I was just like, yeah, so that's where I was. And so I would look at these music teachers who'd been teaching in my district that I knew, that I'm friends with, that I've known for a while, and that had been teaching for a long time, and I was just absolutely petrified that they would ever know this. And so because of that, I didn't share anything on my personal Facebook page. I didn't tell anybody that I know in person. And then on top of that, online business has this added layer of weirdness to it. And by that I mean, it's just got this extra layer of people don't really understand it, especially people who are maybe a little bit older. It's very odd, and it's strange, and it's just kind of weird to explain, and it's weird to, and so it's just a weird thing. So that's how that started. Now, when I noticed it got really bad is in the summer of, oh gosh, math, 2019, I think. in the summer of 2019, I'm gonna go with that, I wrote a book. And it was not my plan. I've always, since I was a child, I wanted to write a story. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to write books. And kind of when I was looking at my career paths, everything was like, oh, well, I could, you know, learn about history and I could write books. Or I could, like, you know, major in French and write books about, I don't know, France. Or I could, you know, like, I'm very into history, so I was like, I could do archaeology and I could write books. And it was always like, I'm gonna do this and write books. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll do music education. And I love music history, so I was like, I could do music history, I could write books about music history. And so that was kind of like my down the road goal from the beginning. And then when I started teaching, I was like, well, I could write books about teaching. And so things would come to me and I would have ideas and I would just write them down. But this book in particular is The Happier Teacher Life. It's this little stack of blue ones right here. But it was something that came to me actually in like the last weeks of school. I remember I had like a composition book, and it was like the last week of school, and it just started like coming to me, and I was like, oh, I could talk about that, oh, I could talk about that, oh, I could talk about that. So I just started writing it down, and before I knew it, I had like a full outline. And so I was like, okay, well, summer's coming, so maybe I'll try to make this into a real thing. And so summer came, and I spent 2 hours every single morning for a month typing this thing out, getting it out into like an actual book. And I didn't tell my husband until I was about 3/4 of the way through. I remember we were in Michael's, and I was like, so I'm writing a book. And he was like, okay. And I was like, I'm like almost done with it. And he was like, okay. Like, all right, okay, you know, like, how do you even respond to that? And it wasn't because I, you know, thought, I was just, I don't know, I was so wrapped up in my head about it, and so like worried about it, and worried about what people would think. And again, I'm so young, what do I know, was kind of the recurring theme throughout my thought process. And so I finished up the book, and then I did not touch it for months. It was months and months and months later, and I was thinking about it and thinking about how I hadn't, you know, finished it. And then the whole COVID thing happened, and so, you know, everyone got locked down. People are even more stressed than normal, and my whole book was about having a less stressed life as a teacher. And I was thinking about it one day, and I was like, okay, I need to get to work on that. And I was really dragging my feet on it, and I had what you may call an epiphany. I'm a Christian, so I call it God. But I literally was like pacing in my house, because I pace when I think. And I literally stopped in my tracks, and the thought that came into my head is one I'm gonna share with you a little bit later when we get more into the strategies and less into the story. And that was, this is not about you. And now, first of all, you're like, well, it's my book, it is about me. But no, it's not about me. It wasn't about me then, it's not about me now. And so that was the biggest epiphany, the biggest God moment, the biggest whatever you want to call it, moment for me, was that it was like, this is not about you. And again, Christian, so I'm over here thinking, okay, God gave me this word, he gave me this book to write. I wrote it, I did the work, but people can't read it because I won't finish it, because I am scared of what people are gonna think. Okay, first of all, how stupid is that? We'll get more into that later. But I ended up, you know, finishing it, publishing it, which was really like a big thing for me. I didn't tell anybody until it was done. And so like literally when I got the copies in, I drove, actually this wasn't even that one, this was my Level Up the Teacher Business book. So I got that one in between writing and finishing the Happier Teacher Life book. Okay, I didn't tell anybody this was happening until I got this book done, and I got copies and I took them and I went to my mom's office. It was like the middle of the summer. I went to my mom's office, and it was just like, look, I have something. And she was really confused, and then she saw like my name on it and like was just so excited. And then I went to my parents' house because my dad was home because he's a teacher, and so I like showed him, and he was all excited, and it just like the resounding like kindness I got from that was really helpful and kind of boosted my confidence to get the other one out and ready. And when that one came out, I did a lot more shouting it from the rooftops. I shared it on Facebook. I told people about it that I actually knew and all of that. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because that was really monumental to me to getting over a lot of the stuff that has happened. And then since then, I've had actually quite a few people in my district who are music teachers who have found my stuff and who have reached out to me and been like, hey, I found this blog post and it was so helpful. Hey, I've been using your, they were buying my resources. I was like, seriously, if you email me, I'll just send them to you. Like, you teach 2 minutes down the road from my school. And things like that. And so that really helped to boost my confidence in getting over the imposter syndrome. And it's now been 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, I don't know, years that I've had this business, and I'm feeling a lot more sure of myself and just a lot better. I still don't like just go into talking to people and be like, hey, I have an online business. But I go in, and if it comes up, I'm happy to mention it. I just don't off the top of my head because it's a little bit weird. But it's not like a fearful, like, what are they gonna think of me anymore? It's more of just a, you know, if it comes up, comes up. So I'm telling you all this story because I wanted to share like my story of imposter syndrome and how I've kind of grown out of that, so that first of all, you can see that it is possible to grow out of it, and two, so that you have a little more perspective when we talk about the actual practical things that have helped me with this in particular. So now that we have this story over, let's talk practical things, because you don't actually have to write a book in order to get over this, I promise. Now, thankfully for you, it is possible to get over imposter syndrome without writing a book. So let's talk about 4 things that are practical, actual things that you can do that will help you to get over imposter syndrome. It might be 5. We shall see. Number 1 is realize this is not about you. So like I mentioned, I had, you know, a big, huge like epiphany. If you've never had a big, huge epiphany, here's your epiphany right now. This is not about you. Sorry. I know it's your face on the Instagram. I know it's your face here on the YouTube. I know it's your voice. I know it's your words if you're blogging. I know it's your work if you're making products. But none of it is about you. None of it is about you. It's all about the people you're helping. When I make these videos, it's not about me. It's about you who is watching this video right now. This video is for you. This message is for you. It doesn't have to do with me. The only thing it has to do with me is that I'm the person here telling you about it. But that's where my part ends. And really, it's the message going to you. That is what is important, is you get the help you need. You get, you know, in my music teacher business, it's you get the lesson plans you need. You get the sub plan that you desperately need because it's 3 a.m. and your kid is sick. Or you get, you know, the ideas that you need to get you to the end of the school year. Whatever it is that you need, that's what I give to you. It has nothing to do with me. It's not the Becca show. It's not about me. It's about you, and it's about me helping you get to where you want to go, get to whatever it is that you need. So the first thing to realize is it's not about you. Why I tell you that is because once you realize it's not about you, there's so much less pressure because it's not about you, and you can just focus on the message. Take the focus off you and focus on the message. Focus on the words, focus on what you're sharing, and make sure that it's good so that people will want to watch it, want to read it, want to use that product because it's helpful. So it's not about you. Take the message that you have and share it and spread it and let people have it, because that's what it comes down to, is sharing the message, not sharing you. Number 2 is that along with your message, everybody has a story and everyone has a different perspective. If you get 10 music teachers in a room, I can promise you we all teach at least a little bit differently. Even if we follow the same style of teaching, we still don't teach exactly the same because we all have different tastes and we have different perspectives and we have different ideas. And the same goes for everything. Okay, there are 50,000 bajillion different books, and there's a lot of different books about the same topics. I currently, sitting on my shelf, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books sitting on this bookshelf that are all about money. They are not the same. Okay, and I'm using this as an example because those 10 books tell me 10 different things, and there's some things that are common that go throughout all of them, but they're not the same book, and that's why I have all the different books, because they're all very different. There's also a lot of books that I don't have on my shelf because I picked them up and they didn't speak to me the same way that they speak to other people. There's that one with the cussing and the title that, y'all, I just can't get behind, and I know that all of, like, I get it, people recommend it all the time. They're like, you should read this book, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read a book if I can't read the title, first of all. Secondly, like, it really turns me off, and like, it makes me not want to read it. And even though I hear it's really good, totally judging a book by a cover over here. And my point being that a lot of people love that book. I don't like that book. I have 10 other books sitting here on my bookshelf that maybe you don't like, and that's fine, because different people have different perspectives, which also means different people are gonna connect with you differently. Say, okay, so some of you come to me and you are music teachers and you love that I teach elementary music because you teach elementary music, and that makes it extra helpful to have my content. Some of you come and you like that things are very simplified on my channel. Some of you come for other reasons, and some people come, watch a video, and don't like me and they leave, and that's fine. They're gonna find somebody else who speaks to them in the way that they prefer, and I don't care. That is fine, because we all have a different perspective and a different story, which means you have a different perspective and a different story than everybody else. And no matter what, you share things differently than somebody else does. And because you share things differently than somebody else does, you are able to speak to a different audience than I speak to. Even if we're both elementary music teachers, we have at least slightly different audiences because we are different people and we attract different people. Just because one person is doing something doesn't mean it's not valuable to you, okay? And even if you feel like maybe you're too young or you're too old or you're too whatever, you're going to attract those people who come to you for that reason that you maybe think is your weakness. So no matter what, you have a story to share that is different than other people's. Even if we have some things that are in common, it's not all gonna be in common, and we have different things to share. The third is a very practical thing, and that is when it comes to content, don't ever fake it. So when I started my blog years ago and I was blogging, I never tried to come off like, one, that I knew everything. Two, I never wrote it in a way of like, yes, I have been teaching forever, because I hadn't been teaching forever. I was very upfront about the whole, like, I'm a new teacher, I'm just doing this, but hey, this worked for me, so it might work for you. I always came at it from the perspective of, it's not that I know everything, it's not that I'm the expert, I'm just sharing what has worked for me. And I never tried to hide how young I was. I never tried to hide how you know, that I was a new teacher. And if you don't try to fake it, then it's not gonna feel fake. That was not very inspirational, but you know, here we are. If you don't try to fake it, it's not gonna feel fake. I had a jazz teacher who used to say, if you do something wrong, do it 3 times and then people will think it's for real. So if you don't try to fake it, it won't seem fake. Just come off as authentic. If you're a new teacher, own it. If you're, you know, maybe a little bit older, own it. If you're younger, own it. If you love classroom decor, own it. Like, whatever it is that you're into, just own that and be real about it. And not everyone's gonna like it. Not everyone's gonna wanna follow a new teacher. Not everyone's gonna wanna follow, you know, whatever it is. But just come off like, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and this is how I'm gonna help you. But that's it. Never try to act like you're more than you are, because that's when you're going to feel like an imposter, because you're being an imposter. So don't do it. And the fourth thing that is probably the most helpful is, or at least was the most helpful for me, is to let your actions speak. You'll notice in my story that I said things like, I wrote a book and then I told people about it. Or I had all these products and YouTube videos and things, and then music teachers from my district found it. I didn't go telling them that I had it. They found my content on their own. It happens every few months. I get an email from one of them that's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you did, you know, all of this stuff. And people, y'all, the accompanist in my choir, who is amazing and has a doctorate and is like fantastic, brilliant musician. He was like, you have saved my life this year. We've used so many of your games. We've used so much of your stuff. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, like awesome. But none of that was gonna happen if I didn't have the stuff behind me. It is so much easier to tell people about your YouTube channel when you have 300 videos. I'm not gonna lie. Then when I first started and I was like, yeah, I have like a video, because I don't know what I'm doing. But once you get a few months down the road, a few years down the road, and you can say, yeah, I have all of these products and I have all of these videos, the actions speak for themselves and you don't have to feel as weird about it, because it already is a thing. That even happened, I didn't tell my mom I had a YouTube channel till a lot longer. And then when I told her, she went and looked it up and she was like, oh my gosh, you have all of these videos. Like, what in the world? Because I had the stuff to back it up. It wasn't just me being like, I want to start a YouTube channel, or I have a YouTube channel and I have a video, or, you know. So when you first start, it's gonna feel like you're an imposter because you just started. It's a new thing. But if you get a few months down the road and you do the work and you have the stuff, then you're gonna feel a lot less weird about it. So my very best bonus tip number 5 is get over yourself and go do it. I know that that's not very inspirational. I say this with all the love in my heart. Get over yourself and go do the work, because if you do the work, you're not gonna feel weird about it. If you do the work, you're gonna be secure about it. If you do the work, then frankly, your TPT business will bring in enough money that you don't care what other people have to say about your Teachers Pay Teachers store, because you are confident in yourself and your success. But you're not gonna get success unless you do the work. You're not gonna feel confident unless you do the work. You're not gonna have the stuff to back you up unless you do the work. So get over yourself. Whatever it is that you're not wanting to do, if you're like, I want to start a YouTube channel but I'm scared, or I want to get on Instagram but I'm scared of what people think, get over it. Go do the work, and then you won't be scared anymore. And if all else fails, you can always just write a book, because that's the easiest thing to do, right? No, just kidding. Writing a book is a ridiculous amount of work. I'm trying to decide what my next one's gonna be. If you have ideas, let me know down below. I have a few ideas that I'm debating between. Anyway, I hope that that helps. I hope it wasn't too blunt, and I hope that you feel a little bit better, at least knowing that like other people deal with imposter syndrome, because it's very, very, very common, not just, but all the way around. I was actually just watching Instagram stories of a fashion blogger I like, and she is a corporate America person by day, and she was talking about how she feels imposter syndrome in corporate America because she, you know, anytime she starts a new role, like it's just weird and it's awkward and you just don't know what you're doing yet, so you feel like an imposter. And that was one of the biggest things she said, was to have specific goals so that you know if you're, you know, doing things right, and then to just know that you're in the right place. So it's not just something you deal with, it's not just something I deal with, it's an all around kind of thing. Anytime you start something new, it's gonna feel weird. But it's not about you. Everyone has something to say. Don't try to fake it. Let your actions speak, and get over your dang self and do the work. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.